Hello, Felipe. Gracias. Thank you so much for being on this podcast. So, just to introduce you to my audience, so this is Felipe Zapata, who is an associate professor at UCLA for the Department of Ecology and Evolutionary Biology. And he has a lab focusing on these things, so ecology, evolutionary biology, and also the conservation of biodiversity, and he's been involved in papers on how to promote diversity in the sciences. So, is there anything I missed? Is there anything you'd want to add to that introduction?
No, I think that pretty much sums up my job here at UCLA. That's pretty good.
Perfect. All right. So, Felipe is originally from Colombia. So, if could you please tell us a little bit like about your journey, like how you started from from being at Colombia and with like an interest in science to UCLA? Like, can you talk about what sparked that interest, please?
Sure. So, well, first of all, thank you so much, Isabella, for the invitation. This is an
Of
honor to be
course.
here with you and with all the audience. So, well, yes, I am from Colombia. I was born in Colombia and raised in Colombia, and I went to high school and college back in Colombia. And I was perhaps being surrounded by all this amazing biodiversity in Colombia that you see everywhere. You see when you travel, you see different landscapes and different places and animals and plants and so on. So I always was interested in nature and in science more broadly. And I had the chance to go to college there, where there was a big emphasis on biodiversity and specifically local biodiversity. So we learned a lot about the local plants and animals in Colombia and the tropics. And that basically got me inspired to really
Mm.
try to understand the processes that generate biodiversity and how biodiversity emerges and where do species come from and how they have evolved, and specifically in the tropics, that it's such an amazing place with so many plants and animals compared to other places in the planet. So that's one of the
Of
questions that
course.
has always kind of motivated my research and my passion for biology.
Of course. So the environment that you're surrounded with is like obviously very important and that sparked your interest. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, what actions did you take in high school or maybe like more specifically like college to develop your interest and kind of like get started in what you wanted to do?
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say that in high school, I was not particularly doing anything specifically for getting into what I was doing. I mean, I like science in high school quite a bit broadly. But it was in college when I enrolled in the biology program that I started to look for opportunities in my university to work with faculty members and ask them about
Mm.
opportunities to help or to support any kind of research, and getting with my friends and my peers. Basically, we were excited
Mm.
about learning about new things and looking for opportunities to do whatever we could to get more exposure to science and participating in groups, in reading groups, and going to the field. So going to the field a lot and learning about sort of biodiversity by being there. So
Mm-hmm.
those experiences really helped me at the beginning. And then towards
Mm.
the end of my career as an undergrad, I joined one of the labs in my university where they were doing what I do today, which is plant evolution. So I joined that faculty member who had started a more or less new lab when he moved to Colombia to teach at that university. So that was a huge step for me to be able to
Mm.
join his lab. He gave me access to many things like a library to learn journals that I hadn't seen before. Um, he invited me to participate in research with his team. So we ended up working in the field, going to do field trips,
Mm.
and I stayed there for about, I don't know, maybe like a 2 years or something at the end of my undergrad. So I spent quite a little bit of time in that lab, and then I also became involved in the teaching, sort of helping with teaching that class.
Mm.
I took the class before, and then I loved it, and I stayed in touch with the professor, and he invited me to be a teaching assistant later on. And all these different things really helped me and sort of set up me for going out abroad and try to study in the US, kind of in that vein, sort of in questions about evolution, about diversity.
I see. I so you put a lot of emphasis on field work and laboratory work. So obviously to like start one's interest, you might start with books or talking to scientists and networking, but could you talk a little bit more about why field work and like laboratory work is so important, especially starting off?
Yeah. So, I mean, specifically in my field, which is plant evolution ecology, it's mainly a field where we are inspired by nature and by how nature works, and we are trying to understand the processes that explain how nature operates. So, in order to get a feeling for those kind of questions, you have to see it. So you have to be in the field, and you
Mm,
have to see the plants and the animals, and you have to question why you see plants in some place and not in a different place, or why do you see animals moving in some directions and not in
mm,
others. So I think that in that context, in the field work is very critical for what we do. And of course,
mm.
in other fields, like for example, people who study, I don't know, more molecular biology or cellular biology, the lab work is critical for some of the questions, right? Because that's where they see the processes that they are interested operating. So they can learn the techniques to answer questions in molecular biology by just being in the lab. So I think that
Mm.
depending on kind of the interest that you have, the activities that are kind of linked to where the questions come from in that particular field are critical for you to develop kind of the skills and the motivation and the creativity to think about
Yes.
fundamental
Yes.
questions in those fields.
Yes, and also kind of like connecting to that, maybe like that curiosity if someone's like just starting, like if they think maybe like I want to work in a lab or I want to work in the field, and they're just like just starting off to develop that curiosity and possibly passion or not, or like to like figure out that maybe, oh, I like this part of the job but not this other part, so I'm going to explore something else.
Hmm.
That's
Totally.
really crucial. Thank you.
Yeah.
So what strategies or habits like do you think you developed early on to help you succeed academically and professionally?
Um, I would say that reading a lot, that helped me a lot.
Reading?
Yeah, like reading a lot and being very sort of dedicated to sort of be on top of things, like mainly sort of focusing on the kind of questions that I was interested in, sort of following the literature and trying to be on top of what was going on. So that like reading new papers and trying to catch up with my sort of gaps in my knowledge by going back and reading books and stuff like that. But I think that it's a lot of like self motivation to that you have
Mm,
to develop, and a lot of discipline, not in the sense of discipline that you cannot do anything else in your life, but if you are really passionate about something, I think that you need to be really dedicated and passionate about it and kind of follow the path that you hope that is going to take you somewhere. So in that path in my career, like reading was critical because as I was going to the field, I was making observations about interesting facts. But then, of
mm,
course, when you read papers and books, you realize that all people have made similar observations, or that's where the questions come from, and that's when the hypotheses in biology have been developed, is when people have been in the field and making observations and making inferences about the processes of how nature works. So I think it's critical to be dedicated and to be kind of passionate about something to be able to succeed and sort of get to the end.
thank you. And kind of connecting to that and what you were saying before about kind of like how you were, and you told me about this before when we last talked. So about the importance of networking and like having a mentor. So maybe like to someone who's just starting out in science, maybe they're like fresh into college and they in it and they want a mentor or something like that. Like how would you give advice to someone kind of like just getting started on how to like approach maybe like a scientist or a mentor who's like top in their field and kind of like get that guidance and like start networking in a like successful way.
Yeah. Well, it's not easy to
Mm-hmm.
connect with people, and sometimes with like faculty members. We are so busy sometimes, but I feel that that's really useful to try to connect somehow. So looking for any opportunities that you might have to do those kind of connections. So either uh, directly by sending emails. Some people are really good at replying those emails, but also looking for opportunities in different programs that sometimes colleges have for like a day that they welcome students in high school to come to the universities. Sometimes professional societies have programs for college to undergrad kind of transitions, and in those kind of environments is where I feel that the networking could work really well. But also, what I feel it's potentially a good way to think about it too is to maybe look for a mentor that somehow you feel either identified or represented. And I feel that that can sometimes be easier, but also kind of boost your confidence that you can talk to somebody who potentially is like you, somebody who is maybe from your same background or from your same gender or any of those things could be a good entry point to make these networking opportunities less awkward. And once you have
Yes.
a foot on the door, I think things get easier. Once you sort of are connected with somebody and they, I don't know, you have a chance to be in a lab or work with students or work with postdocs, then the whole network situation gets easier in the sense that you are already kind of part of a team. But that first sort of connection is critical, and I would say that approaching people it's the best way, like sending emails and be persistent. I mean, sometimes, as I said, we are really busy as faculty members, but sometimes we have the time to reply, and I mean, most people reply when they can to those requests by students.
Thank you. So we'll circle back to that part about identity, kind of similar to what you were talking about, like mentorship and networking. So are there any like specific mentorship like programs or initiatives that you would represent maybe for like underrepresented groups or groups who are just starting to get started, who are just getting started in science?
Well, I don't work specifically in any of those programs, but I have been
Hmm.
part of multiple discussions and societies where we are trying to implement these kind of programs. So for example, in the society, in the Botanical Society of America, which is the society where most people who study plants in the US are members on. And it's not only in the US, people from all the world, but it's mainly in the US because it's based here. Uh, I was part of that society in kind of a meeting that we had a few years ago on how to increase opportunities for underrepresented minorities and how can we increase opportunities for mentorship. And we develop ideas that then the society is trying to implement across sort of the whole range in science. So from college to faculty members, and how to provide opportunities for mentorship, specifically for people who are either new to science, that they haven't had an experience before in science, that they are the only ones in their family with a scientific degree, people who are minorities in science. So we're trying to provide these kind of network opportunities for people to start to interact with each other and feel connected and feel part of the whole sort of system, the academic system. So the society has developed then later on that was part of kind of of a strategic plan that we proposed for the society for the next couple of years. And the society has tried to implement different programs. So they have come up with programs for like undergrad students or high school students who can attend meetings, or research in the summer for high school students and so on. So
Mm.
even though I haven't run any of those programs specifically in my lab, I was part of the design of some of these activities, and of course, many people have taken them in sort of more directions. And I feel that that's one way in which we are sort of providing access to more people in science, and that's where I feel that we could do a much better job at approaching students, like high school students who might be interested in pursuing careers in science as well.
Yeah, and that's very helpful to know that like universities like UCLA, for example, like some an academic, obviously an academic like environment and academic setting is also like provide is like collaborating, helping like communities of underrepresented groups. So yes, thank you. I will talk about those later on in the video. Anyway, so I also wanted to talk about we were talking about networking and emails. So like when you're receiving an email maybe from a high school student or maybe a college student who's looking to work in your lab, what are you like what do you consider most important in that email?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So there are many things that I look for in those emails. The first one is that there is some sort of like genuine interest to be in my lab or to work with me. That one is not super easy to to see, but sometimes it's relatively easy to see when a
Express.
student yeah when it's written in a way that you can clearly understand that yeah this is genuinely somebody who likes the types of questions that we ask or the organisms that we study. So I look for those kind of cues, like, okay, clearly there is a true interest, a genuine interest. And sometimes I have been really amazed with students, high school students who have emailed me that they have even read some of the papers that we publish in my lab. And that to me is a really good sign that it's somebody totally interested that has done the homework of not only looking up my name, who we are, but also read a few of the papers so that
Yeah.
they understand exactly what we do. And it's not only people who just want to be, for example, in LA or at UCLA because it's sounds cool to be in LA, but it's more like they are interested in exactly what we do and how we do it. So I look for those kind of signs
Interest, genuine
in
interest.
the yeah, like the interest is genuine and that they have done some of the homework for that. And then on top of that, I look for other stuff which is not critical for me, but some students send me previous experiences. So if a student, for example, has done some work in the past, that's also really kind of impressive in my mind. Um, Students sometimes send the grades. I don't pay too much attention to grades. I think that grades could be misleading in many ways. I like more people who are truly interested and that they show like a passion for something. So that's me personally how I approach these things.
Thank you so much. I also wanted to ask. Wait, one second. Can you? I I can cut this part out later. Did you hear a ringing in the?
No,
Oh,
no,
okay. Because my mom just called me. It's okay. I can cut this part out later. I can cut that part out later. I'm sorry. I just.
no,
Oh
no
my god.
worries.
I just wanted to see if you could hear it.
Yeah,
Okay. Perfect. So I also wanted to ask, so you are an immigrant from Colombia, so I kind of wanted to ask like what barriers did you overcome as an immigrant coming into like a stereotypical, we were talking about this before. It was a stereotypically like scientific environment. So could you talk a little bit more about how you overcame those barriers?
yeah. So well, definitely an immigrant, one of the first barriers that I faced was the language.
Mm.
I didn't grow up speaking English. I grew up speaking Spanish, and even though I kind of learned English a little bit in high school, I was not using English on a daily basis. So when I moved to the US, just the English barrier was a first challenge that I faced, but also the scientific English, which is a little bit different than the kind of day-to-day English. So
Mm.
you have to
Yeah.
learn a little bit kind of the structure and the words and so on. So those were kind of initial challenges that I faced. I was very lucky that I I went to grad school at a place where the grad program, the PhD program, had a large interest in tropical biology. So we
Mm.
were many students from the tropics, from throughout the tropics, from the tropics in the Americas, but also African tropics and Southeast Asian tropics.
Mm.
So it was really good because many of us and almost the vast majority of the students we were immigrants, and for almost all of us, English was not our first language. So it
Mm.
helped me quite a bit to be surrounded again by people who were in some way more similar to me, in the sense that some people had also challenges with English and challenges from being far from home and so on and so forth. So those things were really critical for me to be to feel right away kind of included in science, because I joined a group of students who were exactly like me. So I didn't
Right.
feel totally awkward, and
Mm.
that helped me a lot. But of course, as I start to move on sort of in the academic system in the US, then things start to change because, I mean, as you know, it becomes really competitive all the way until you get to becoming a professor, and the representation of minorities and immigrants, gets kind of smaller as you go up all the way to full
Yeah.
professors. So in that case, that kind of was a different type of challenge, more a challenge of basically showing the value that I had as a scientist. That I could, even though I was not a native American, I could be part of the American system in the sense of I had my degree. My research was kind of speaking for myself. I was doing research, like really top of the line research, that opened the doors for me to become a faculty member. And I think that the challenge there was more like be able to sort of overcome the fear of that imposter syndrome that sometimes
Yeah.
most of us have. Like maybe you are not good enough, maybe you have a thick accent and people are not going to get it,
Yeah.
and so on. But I think that overcoming those fears really, really helped me to achieve what I wanted, and here I am. Basically, I made it all the way to become a professor at a research university, and I feel totally included now in the field. And now I am part of the field, so now I am part of the whole academic structure that I am trying to provide support now for people and mentorship for people who want to achieve the same.
Thank you. One second, I'm gonna cut this part out later. I need to turn on the. No, that's so bad. I'm gonna cut that part out later. Thank you so much. I should have done that from the beginning. Okay. Oh my god. Okay. So, kind of talking about that. So obviously, environment is like very important. Reaching out to people, like you said, that kind of like have had similar experiences as you, so you don't feel as like isolated, but also kind of like getting over that fear that maybe like you won't, I don't know, you won't be accepted, because obviously it's like a valid fear and there isn't enough representation, but there are always like other groups out there that would be like you found other immigrants who are in the field, like interested basically in the same things as you. So that's
Exactly,
really important.
exactly.
Yes. So kind of like related to that, how have you like how have other type of failures set you up for success?
Or failures. Wow, that's a good one. I mean, I think that science uh, in itself is full of failures, and sometimes people who are not in science believe that it's not. People in science, people who are outside of science, believe that science is this kind of amazing experiments that we do, and then we publish these papers, and all the experiments work amazing, and so on. But it's not. Actually, there's a lot of failures along the way, a lot of mistakes and problems that you have, and you have to overcome those problems on a daily basis. So either in the field, either in the lab, either in the computer, uh, anywhere. So as a grad student, for example, I planned long field expeditions to different places to look for plants that I was studying, and then showing up to one of those places after spending a lot of time getting the money, getting grants to be able to travel, and then showing up in a place and not finding the plants. So then what do you do? So that already sort of sets you in a kind of in an alarm mode that you have to figure something out really quickly. Otherwise, you will fail your whole trip. So that opens your creativity and forces you to think right away on your feet. What can you do, and so on and so forth. In the lab, the same. When I came back to the US to do all the genetic work that I was doing, the same. You do DNA work, and sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes you try to extract the DNA and it fails. You lose it. And if you don't come up with solutions, creative solutions right away, then the whole thing will fail. So you have to design a new protocol and think about the issues and so on. So I think that the whole process of science in itself is full of failures and challenges that actually help you prepare for those, and actually force you to think creatively about how to solve problems right away. Otherwise, you will sink, because science is full of challenges and really, really difficult to plan something that is going to work perfectly well, and most likely it's not going to work. So you have to be open to failure the whole time, and be able to change protocols and things along the way. And when you read a paper, a scientific paper, or even a book, you read it and it sounds like, oh my God, this is perfect. These people did this experiment and everything was amazing. Everything worked perfectly well. Or in the book, they tell a story, and it's actually quite the contrary. It's to get to that point where, well, the story makes sense. likely were years of work, years of failures, experiments that failed, repeated experiments, papers where the data was not very clean, a second paper where the data was much better, and so on and so forth. So I think that being a scientist is actually a good exercise to overcome those fears of failure, because what we do is prone to failure the whole time.
Exactly. Every single failure is kind of like you're learning something new and you're getting closer to success in a way. So
Mhm.
that's a big part, obviously,
Yeah,
of science.
yeah.
Thank you. Um, so this is kind of like moving the questions in a different route, but I still think it's an interesting question. So, what purchase of $100 or less have you made like in the last month that has made like the most, or in the last 6 months that has made
Okay.
like the most positive impact on you?
Okay, so
$100 or less.
wow, $100 or less. I would say, I mean, I think that this is not necessarily related to my work in
Uh-huh.
specifically, but is related to something else that I do, which is that I like to run in the mornings. So I bought a new hat that really changed my running. So basically, getting a new hat that I didn't have before has forced me to go back to running. I had stopped running for a while because I had like a knee injury, but getting my hat again, and I actually also bought new running shoes, but they are more expensive than 100. But that actually is helping me a lot, because when I run, actually, it's a good time for me to think. When I run, I am the whole time kind of thinking about my projects and proposals, and even if I am writing a paper. When I run, I think about the ideas that I want to come back and write. So I go for a run, then come back home, and I sit down and write a few ideas that came to my mind. So running for me, it's like a good therapy to clear my mind, but also a good therapy to think a lot. And it's also nice. I like running here in LA. It's a good weather to run the whole year. So I really like running.
Yes, thank you for kind of like emphasizing that balance because like as you said, like doing something that could be like relaxing and obviously like therapeutic for you, like as you're doing that, you're also like helping setting your mind up for like new ideas that maybe like you wouldn't have if you were just like burnt out like working all the time. So kind of like related to that, like how this is kind of like a hard question, but like how would you like when you think of success, what do you think of like generally? Like is there a certain person that when you think of success like you think about and it doesn't have to be in science just like
Mm.
when you think of successful what do you think about?
Yeah, when I think about success, perhaps what comes to my mind is somebody who has achieved what they are set their goals to be, regardless of what they are. Could be in sports, could be in industry, could be a scientist, could be in arts. But I think that people who have like a goal or some specific goals in mind, and have like dreams to achieve something, and they do it with hard work and opportunities and serendipity, whatever. And I think that's, to me, what successful in many ways means, is that somebody who
Mm.
has a clear idea of where they want to go, and they achieve it in many ways. That's the first thing that comes to my mind about success and being successful. Of course, there's all dimensions to being successful. I mean, all people are really successful even without clear goals, and they sort of are just moving around, and suddenly they become very successful in what they do. But I really appreciate people who have like very clear goals and really clear ideas and aspirations, and they achieve those, whatever field those might be.
Mm-hmm. And they don't necessarily have to be like huge goals like in the beginning like they can be like small goals and small goals lead you maybe possibly to a like bigger goal that you might
Yeah,
have.
exactly. Like, the success could be, I don't know, for example, finishing high school. That's one of your goals, is
Mm-hmm.
to be able to
Yeah.
succeed and finish high school. Because for some people, maybe high school is even already challenging to attend high
Mm.
school. And if that's one of your goals and you're successful finishing, that's amazing. And then your next goal perhaps is going to uh, university or going to college, and then apply to a couple of colleges, and your goal is to go to X or Y college because of whatever reason. And then if you achieve it because you work hard to sort of make the connections to get there, and work hard into whatever you need, that's amazing. Or if you are a sports person and one of your goals is, I don't know, to run a marathon, and you work for that, you have to train, and suddenly you run your first marathon, and that's really successful for in that way as well. So I feel that the success doesn't have to be like the end line. It could be these small
Mm.
successes that can lead to bigger things in life.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Also, so kind of like wrapping up this call, do you have any more requests or asks maybe of the audience?
Uh, well, not really, but what I would say is that perhaps related to what I just said, which is
Mm-hmm.
follow your passions. I mean, really, if
Mm.
you follow your passions, whatever those passions be, uh, I think that that's one way to feel happy about what you do and be successful. And in science specifically, and in biology in particular, I feel that if students are interested in biology, or people are interested in biology, think big and broad about biology. I mean,
Mm.
biology. I feel my experience talking to many students here at UCLA is that many students come with the idea that perhaps in high school they have about biology very linked to to humans and to med school and so on, which is part of it. But biology is way broader than that. I mean, biology is a field that it's about life, the whole tree of life, and understanding everything in life. I mean, medicine is just understanding one of the branches of the tree of life, the branches that lead to humans. But biology, in my mind, is a way richer field. So if students feel that they like biology and science, but they only see kind of that the way out is going to med school, but they are not interested in med school necessarily, being a biologist is really fun, and you can make a living being a biologist. You have to work hard and so on, but you have to work hard in any field. And I feel that's important to me, that
Mm.
students realize that if you follow your passions and you follow your interest, you can really achieve many things in your life.
Thank you. And also like what you were talking about before, getting over that like initial fear of maybe like taking a step, whether that's like taking a harder class or like networking, reaching out maybe to that like professor. I think that's very important too.
Totally,
And
totally, I agree. Uh-huh.
thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you so much for inviting me, Isabella. This is awesome.
Of course. All right. Bye.
Okay, see you around.